What's cracking, everybody? XehrFelrose here, bringing you some Pokemon Go Battle League content. Today's video, we got the 2-for-1 special, baby. We've got Halloween Cup earlier today, and now we're doing the Great League Remix. And you'd be shocked as I am, Niantic actually updated the ban list for this meta mid-season. So now it's not based on last season, it's actually based on the current season meta, which I think is an awesome thing amidst a sea of just disappointment and things that typically comes from Niantic. I think that that's a nice win for us to at least take something nice out of it. Anyway, as always, we're going to be going through the rankings, some strong teams in the meta, and I'm going to get right off the top here. This cup was really weird to build teams for, and I think the reason why is because a lot of your typical things that you lean on when team building are not in this meta, or not in the meta in a way that you need them to be in order to make a cohesive team around what we expect. So a lot of interesting new cores have formed and some different ways to build teams. So we're going to talk about all that stuff. And just in case you're only listening and not able to see right up on the screen here, we've got a ban list consisting of Alolan Sandslash, Wigglytuff, thank goodness, Dugong, Marowak, Kanto Marowak, mind you, Feraligatr, Azumarill, Jumpluff, Quagsire, Dunsparce, Gastrodon, both forms to be clear, Drapion, Serperior, Ferrothorn, Mandibuzz, Greninja, Diggersby, Talonflame, Malamar, Toxapex, and to round out the list, Clodsire being last on the list. Now, this list looks very complete to me. Like, there's not anything on here that I don't think doesn't need to be here, aside from maybe Ferrothorn, but I mean, even still, Ferrothorn is, you know, it's one of those Pokemon that is very good in the current meta, so it does not surprise me that a lot of people are running it. But yeah, like, this list looks great. So let's take a look at the rankings and just kind of see, you know, as we usually do, we're going to pick out some standout picks. And right up at the top, we got our boy Pangoro sitting up there very, very nice and tight with Close Combat, Night Slash, Karate Chop, as it usually does. And that's kind of like a very good tell of what this cup is all about, right? So if you look below it, Weezing, Shadow Galarian Weezing is second. And I struggled to find a team around this thing. I'm sure that somebody will and somebody could, but I could not, for the life of me, get a good team out of this thing. It just feels like one of those one-off Pokemon that's very good individually, but is hard to fit into a cohesive team. Carbink, as always, is a trap, and I don't know how it gets to rank 3 when we have the likes of Bastiodon, Steelix, Registeel, and all this other stuff that's underneath it. It's just like, it's one of those things, I swear, it's like Carbink is here by virtue of beating like everything that's rank 100 and lower, and then everything that beats it is up here anyway. So, we also have Clefable, Machamp. I think Shadow Machamp is going to be a super strong thing in this cup, as well as Steelix. I also like Glade a lot. Golurk making a lot of sense in this cup, as it's very good into most of the things above it, as like beats Pangoro, beats Carbink, beats Weezing, beats Machamp, beats Steelix, beats Basti, probably finds a way to beat Lord, you know, probably finds a way to beat Clefable. Glade is a bit of a problem for it because of those Leaf Blades being so hard hitting, but you know, Golurk is just a real good force in this meta, just like it will be in the Halloween Cup. I like Quillfish as always. Registeel, I think, is going to come back in a meaningful way here as an anti-meta pick, as there are a lot of things that do struggle to deal with the energy of Registeel. But unfortunately, that one drawback for Registeel is that it's so slow and clunky that if, you know, multiple shields are up, it's very difficult for Registeel to take a matchup in the 2 shields anymore, because everything just generates energy so quickly, and if you're on top of your counts, you're able to really work around that Registeel. Licky was one of the only rollout users of note, I think it was the only one of note, to be honest, that survived the ban list, having Earthquake as its only real virtue here, because, you know, things like Miltank, right, you don't really have, like, you need the ground coverage to compete with what's up here, right? Carbink, Weezing, Steelix, Basti, you know, there's things here that are only really, you know, only lose to Licky because it has the Earthquake. But Licky's still going to be a really good safe swap anyway, I think. And as we go a little bit further down here, Umbreon, interesting. I don't know that it's going to be good because there's a lot of things in this meta that just kind of slap it around. I miss the good old days of Umbreon, man. I really do. Galarian Stunfisk is interesting to me as well. Having that ground rock coverage, very nice. It's like a worse version now of Dunsparce, but still does a good job at what it does. Tropius could be interesting as well. It does have access to Brutal Swing, but it doesn't seem like it really wants it here. And I like Walrein as well, coming back. And I think that's something else that doesn't really pop up on this list, aside from this Cresselia, which could also be very, very interesting in this cup, is Medicham. And Medicham doesn't pop up here, but I think that it could do a very interesting role with like Psycho Cut, Ice Punch, Dynamic Punch, you know, something like that. It's very bulky, and if you've got one built, I think that it could be a very good alternative to something like Glade. You're giving up, obviously, the Glade being, you know, a glass cannon, whereas Medicham is much more bulky, but also, you know, you have to worry about the other things in this cup that are going to be able to do well. But I think that Medicham has a chance in this cup, very much so. So let's take a look at our first team here as we get in. We're going to take right into the first one here, and I had to do a second take because I'm all over the place. But Pangoro double poison, right? A very standard kind of backline for Pangoro. We're going to be running Nidoqueen and Quillfish. The thing with Pangoro and a lot of other teams in general that I found here is that there's not really a whole lot of like super solid, like bulky, safe swap sort of Pokemon, right? So like, I don't like Registeel. That much is definitely true. I just don't really like it. It's very, very clunky. It's not something I've enjoyed using lately. There it is. But Nidoqueen is a somewhat bulky Great League pick, but is able to handle the fairies. And we have Quillfish because you all know that I love Quillfish. It's one of my favorite safe swaps, and I think that with most of the Mud Slappers gone, Quillfish is definitely like in a really good spot in this cup to be able to do well. So we have the meta breakdown here. Only thing that I'm really truly worried about with this team is going to be the Golurk. Golurk can just fast move through Pangoro, and if Pangoro can't land a Night Slash, or if it does and it doesn't really KO, then your poison damage being double resisted into that Golurk is going to have a very hard time knocking it out. So I would be very cautious when dealing with Golurk. If it gets popular, maybe you pivot to a different lead, perhaps. Like, you know, you could even throw Umbreon in the lead if you want something super neutral. Or you could flip the whole thing around and run Nidoqueen in the lead with Umbreon in the back and a Pangoro in the back. So there's a couple different ways you can go about this. But in general, though, potential threats, I think the Cresselia and Golurk are probably the only things that I'm really, truly concerned about with this team. And if they're not super popular, then this team could do very, very well, in my opinion. So we take a look now at another team that... And genuinely, this team surprised me. I was trying to build something around Shadow Machamp, and I ended up finding this interesting little gem here. So this is a rare balanced team. I don't usually do balanced teams because I feel like if you're playing a balanced team and you hit a bad lead, you're probably going to get or broken by something. And it just, Murphy's Law, every time it happens, it'll happen at the worst time, right? So I can already see some issues with this team. However, it does get a nice, big, fat A for coverage. And it's got a B for safety and consistency. So it's not too bad here. Bulk could do less, but that's got Machamp on it. What do you expect, you know? The team has very good coverage into the meta. That's the nice thing about it, is that everything on this team beats something in this format. There's nothing on this team that beats, or there's nothing in this meta that beats this whole team straight through. However, you're going to end up having a potential issue with, like, if you see a Galarian Weezing on the lead, you can't really swap out of that. If you see a Pangoro on the lead, you kind of just have to deal with it. You know, so Alolan Ninetales with Powder Snow is another thing that I think might be a problematic thing. So you just, you know, you have to play it carefully. If these Pokemon that we're talking about aren't incredibly popular, this team could definitely pop off and really kind of tailor it around what you expect to see. I still think that you could put this team virtually also in any order, and it could do pretty well. I would probably opt against leading the Machamp, though, because there would be those games where your opponent safe swaps like Miltank or Licky, and you could just pop your Machamp on that, and as soon as Machamp gets a chance to get energy and get started on something, it's not letting off the gas, man. You just keep going, and it's very difficult for an opponent to come back from something like that. So that's why I think the Machamp is going to do very well in this cup, because it has a chance to really build up and start steamrolling a team. But let's take a look at number 3 here. So team number 3 is a little bit more interesting. I know I just spoke about how much I don't like using Registeel, but Registeel beats Steelix beats Bastiodon, able to beat Carbink, right? Like, the thing is that Registeel is the best in that role of like that bulky anti-flyer with, you know, that kind of coverage. So I think that pairing it with Chestnut here could work if you're not seeing a lot of fire, right? If you see an Alolan Marowak, well, unfortunately, that's going to be a bad time. But I put a Rangaroo in here because it rounds out this team very well, but it's also a very neutral safe swap. I think it could do interesting things here in this meta. Having Trailblaze for the ground types, Confusion for the poison, Brutal Swing for some nice little chip damage. I mean, of course, if you're going to end up against something like, you know, Bastiodon or Carbink, or, you know, even Carbink would be okay, but like Registeel, Steelix, Basti would be kind of nasty for it, but you're also able to get those out on the field for the Chestnut to hopefully get rid of. And then at that point, you know, hopefully you're going to be able to have a good time with Registeel just going off maybe with shield advantage. But so team in general, like, this is an anti-meta team for sure. This is like saying that Golurk gets popular and we're just trying to use the Registeel Chestnut core to its best advantage here. But this is where I started to realize that maybe Machamp could be an interesting pick here. You could even also use it over the Chestnut or even the Oranguru if you want to. I would probably put it over the Chestnut if I'm picking anything, or lead Registeel, safe swap Machamp, Chestnut in the back would be another way to do it. Otherwise, you know, Charge-a-Bug, Typhlosion, like fires, you know, there's some things that do definitely have a lot of play into this team, but none of which I expect to be incredibly popular, so your mileage may vary. This next team also very interesting to me. We were talking about teams that would allow that Machamp to get started and start going. Well, in order to kind of circumvent that issue, we've thrown Cresselia in the lead to be able to absorb that Shadow Machamp energy, and we've got Licky as our safe swap to bait out that Pangoro or the Machamp. Now, if it's a Pangoro and it gets a really good energy lead and it doesn't close combat, we might have a problem. But Night Slash does chip damage into everything, but the Cresselia, like, it can take a couple Night Slashes anyway, so we're not super worried about that. And then hopefully that will free up the Galarian Stunfisk, which has really interesting, strong coverage into a lot of other things. Also, because Licky's a rollout user, you're very likely to pull out a Mud Slap user like Golurk, and you're also likely to pull out something like, you know, Whiscash, right? Or any of these ground types that are in the meta. And so hopefully that'll allow you to dispatch of those, and then you will have a free Galarian Stunfisk to just do what you will with. I think that even though Galarian Stunfisk cooked to hit the Mud Shot, we've shown that sometimes it's fine, right? Swampert is still serviceable. We've seen a lot of people having success with, Quagsire, despite the Mud Shot nerf. So again, this is another anti-meta team, something that works here. You really don't see a lot of anything on this list. Whimsicott really is the only thing that I would expect to even see maybe once in a while. Other than that, I think that this team can do very well. And again, having that Earthquake on the Licky makes it a very potent safe switch against a lot of this meta. So let's take a look at team number 5, where we get a little bit spicier. And I only mean a little bit. We have Glade in the lead here, and we've got Double Ice. So the reason why we have Double Ice is because that's going to allow us to have hard answers to the flying types. We're all very neutral into ghost types, but the main ghost types in this meta are going to end up being either Alolan Marowak, which Aurorus and Walrein have super effective coverage for, or Glade is going to have, Glade can deal with a Golurk with those Leaf Blades. And I would prefer Shadow Glade here if I had to choose. And if we're safe swapping Walrein, probably regular Walrein, but you can play with the on and off of Shadows as you wish. And Aurorus is here as just that steamroll sweeper. We save the shields. Hopefully Walrein gets rid of that fighting type. We can go to the circus or town or wherever you want to go. Go to the zoo, go to the store. We go wherever you want to go, man. We can go anywhere you like. Team has a lot of play into the meta. There's a lot of things that get beaten triplicate here, which I like to see. Especially Golurk. I think Golurk is like one of those things that just gains popularity because it's so oppressive. And if we have a team that beats it in triplicate, I think that's really good. And Gogoat, Ursaring, Golisopod, and Rain Castform rounding out the list of things that beats this whole team. I think we have a potential good team here. Steelix, really uncomfortable. I mean, you have play into the Steelix. That's the the only thing that I would really see here as an issue. Glade, obviously, you see an opponent having Glade on the lead, maybe we have a bad time if you can't get rid of that Glade in time. However, for the most part, I don't see a lot of things here really being a worry for this team, because you have good play into a lot of the meta. So let me know if you're going to be running anything in the Great League Remix, or if you're going to be playing the Halloween Cup this week. And hopefully some of these teams will do well for y'all. Let me know in the comments what your plan is, what you're having fun with. And if you've already played some games, if you have some success, I'd like to know that as well. Thank you all very much for watching. We'll catch you in the next one. Bye-bye.